Canada ratifies Finland, Sweden's bid to join NATO. Canada became the first country to formally ratify Finland and Sweden's accession to NATO after member nations signed off on the alliance's expansion. Canada has full confidence in Finland and Sweden's ability to integrate quickly and effectively into NATO and contribute to the alliance's collective defense, said Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada. End Ukraine war of choice, West tells Russia at G20. US and its allies pressured Russia at G20 talks over its unprovoked and unjustifiable war of choice in Ukraine, but Moscow's envoy remained defiant.
To our Russian colleagues, Ukraine is not your country. Its grain is not your grain. Why are you blocking the ports? You should let the grain out,
said Antony Blinken, Secretary of State of the United States. No signs of meaningful Russian diplomacy on Ukraine, says US. US says they saw no signs of Russia engaging with G20 diplomats over Ukraine invasion after Moscow faced a barrage of criticism.
We saw no signs whatsoever that Russia is prepared to engage in meaningful diplomacy. If there is an opportunity for diplomacy, we will seize it. There was a strong consensus and Russia was left isolated, as it has been many times since this war began. In fact, Foreign Minister Lavrov left the meeting early, maybe because this message had been so resoundingly clear,
said Antony Blinken, Secretary of State of the United States. US abandoned contact, says Russia at G20. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said he would not chase after US for talks as his counterpart Antony Blinken declined to see him at a G20 meeting.
It was not us who abandoned contact, it was the United States. We are not running after anybody suggesting meetings. Our Western partners are trying to avoid talking about global economic issues. From the moment they speak, they launch into fevered criticism of Russia over the situation in Ukraine, calling us aggressors and occupiers. Everyone is telling us to put an end to the operation and reach a peaceful solution,
said Sergei Lavrov, Foreign Minister of Russia. Barely started action, Putin to Ukraine. Vladimir Putin has told Ukraine that it should quickly accept Moscow's terms or brace for the worst, adding that Russia has barely started its action.
It's a tragedy for the Ukrainian people, but it looks like it's heading in that direction. Everybody should know that largely speaking, we haven't even yet started anything in earnest,
said Vladimir Putin, President of Russia. Russia warns, if West punishes it, humanity is at risk. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev said attempts by the West to punish a nuclear power such as Russia for the war in Ukraine risked endangering humanity.
The idea of punishing a country that has one of the largest nuclear potentials is absurd, and potentially poses a threat to the existence of humanity,
said Dmitry Medvedev, former President of Russia, and now Deputy Chairman of the Russian Security Council. Europe jittery as Russia reduces gas supplies. As Russian gas giant Gazprom begins 10 days of routine maintenance on its Nord Stream 1 pipeline, Germany and other European countries are anxiously watching.
We are confronted by an unprecedented situation. Anything is possible. It is possible that the gas will flow once more, even at a higher volume level than before. It is possible that nothing comes through, and we still have to prepare for the worst,
said Robert Habeck, Vice-Chancellor of Germany. Talks with China constructive, says US. US State Secretary said that talks with his Chinese counterpart were constructive, but voiced concern over issues including Taiwan, Hong Kong, human rights and Ukraine.
Despite the complexities of our relationship, I can say with some confidence that our delegations found today's discussions useful, candid, and constructive. I conveyed deep concerns of the United States regarding Beijing's increasingly provocative rhetoric and activity towards Taiwan and the vital importance of maintaining peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait,
said Antony Blinken, Secretary of State of the United States. MI5 and FBI flag China threat. Heads of MI5 and FBI warned about China's commercial espionage, pointing out that threat from Chinese spies is paramount and continues to grow.
Today we're running 7 times as many investigations as we were in 2018. We plan to grow as much again, while also maintaining significant effort against Russian and Iranian covert threats,
said Ken Callum, Director General of MI5. Beijing rejects MI5 and FBI accusations as groundless. Reacting to accusations of commercial espionage made by MI5 and FBI, Beijing has rejected the allegations, describing them as completely groundless.
The so-called cases they listed are pure shadow chasing. They spread all kinds of lies about China in order to smear China's political system, stoke anti-China and exclusion sentiment, and divert public attention in order to cover up their own infamous deeds,
said a statement by Embassy of China in the UK. No attacks on other nations from Afghan soil anymore, Taliban. Taliban Supreme Leader Hebatullah Akhundzada said that Afghan soil will not be allowed to be used for carrying out attacks on other countries.
We assure our neighbors, the region and the world that we will not allow anyone to use our territory to threaten the security of other countries. We also want other countries not to interfere in our internal affairs. Within the framework of mutual interaction and commitment, we want good, diplomatic, economic and political relations with the world, including the United States, and we consider this in the interest of all sides,
said Hebatullah Akhundzada, Taliban Supreme Leader. US freezes assets of global network selling Iranian oil. US Treasury said it was freezing assets of members of an international network for violating oil sanctions on Tehran by selling Iranian petrochemical products to East Asia.
While the United States is committed to achieving an agreement with Iran that seeks a mutual return to compliance with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, we will continue to use all our authorities to enforce sanctions,
said a statement by United States Treasury. Biden defends Saudi visit, says human rights are on agenda. President Joe Biden defended his decision to travel to Saudi Arabia, saying human rights would be on his agenda.
I know that there are many who disagree with my decision to travel to Saudi Arabia. My views on human rights are clear and long-standing, and fundamental freedoms are always on the agenda when I travel abroad. I will be the first president to visit the Middle East since 9/11 without U.S. troops engaged in a combat mission there. It's my aim to keep it that way,
said Joe Biden, President of the United States. Quad mourns death of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Leaders of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, Quad, have expressed shock at the tragic assassination of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe.
We, the leaders of Australia, India, and the United States, are shocked at the tragic assassination of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was a transformative leader for Japan and for Japanese relations with each one of our countries. Our hearts are with the people of Japan and Prime Minister Kishida in this moment of grief. We will honor his memory by redoubling our work towards a peaceful and prosperous region,
said a statement by leaders of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. Pakistan's government to talk with terror group to end violence. Pakistan Parliamentary Panel has endorsed talks with the banned Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan (TTP) to end the violence in the country.
With the support of the Afghan government and led by civilian and military officials, the Pakistani government is negotiating with the banned TTP within the framework of the Constitution of Pakistan to strengthen regional and internal peace. The Parliamentary Committee on National Security formally approved the process of negotiations and approved the formation of a Parliamentary Oversight Committee which would be responsible for overseeing the process within constitutional limits,
said a statement by Office of the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Sri Lanka's economic crisis warning to all, says UN. With the war in Ukraine dragging on, knock-off effect of COVID-19 pandemic, countries risk seeing the same economic crisis as Sri Lanka, the UN has said.
We're witnessing a tragic series of events that are unfolding in Sri Lanka right now that should be a warning to anyone who thinks that, it is up to countries themselves to figure out how to deal with this crisis,
said Joachim Steiner, administrator of the UN Development Programme.